Hello everyone and welcome to my educational commentary on William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 5, Scene 1 and Act 5, Scene 2. Today we'll be going over the key points in both scenes to see what William Shakespeare is trying to tell us with those scenes and to try and get a better understanding on them. So without further ado, let's get right into Hamlet, Act 5, Scene 1 and Scene 2 to see what we can learn from William Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Starting with Act 5, Scene 1, here's a little summary. We start out with a gravedigger and one other as they talk about Ophelia's death and whether it should be considered holy or unholy burial. They eventually come to the conclusion that they believe it should be unholy, but in this case it will be holy because she was a maiden, I guess. And then, after that, the guy leaves, but the gravedigger stays, and Horatio and Hamlet eventually find him. Then they see how the gravedigger treats the skulls. Then Hamlet starts talking about it, and then he starts talking about how everybody will meet death eventually. No matter how great, they all meet at their own fate, which is death. And then the gravedigger leaves as the king, queen, and Laertes come to celebrate Ophelia's ceremony of death. And then Hamlet confronts Laertes as they fight each other, talk about Ophelia and stuff. And then the confrontation finishes as everybody leaves, and that's how the scene ends. There are some key moments in Act 5, Scene 1 that I want to talk about, so let's get right into those.
Is she to be buried in Christian burial, which she willfully seeks her own salvation? I tell thee she is, therefore make her grave straight. The crown hath sat on her and finds it Christian burial. How can that be, unless she drowned herself in her own defense? Why 'tis found so? It must be. It cannot be else, for here lies the point. If I drown myself wittingly, it argues an act, and an act hath three branches, is to do act, to do, to perform. She drowned herself wittingly. Nay, but you hear Goodman Delver, give me leave. Here lies the water, good. Here stands a man, good. If the man go to this water and drown himself, it is, he goes, mark you that. But if the water come to him and drown him, he drowns on himself. Argal, and he that is not guilty of his own death shortens not his own life. But is this law? Aye, marry is it, Crowner's quest law. Will you have truth on it? If this had not been a gentlewoman, she would have been buried out of Christian burial. This part right here is very important because we know that death is a strong theme in Hamlet, and now we're getting more ideas on that and the fact that there's like an unholy death and a holy death, and we're starting to see the basis of what William Shakespeare believed and what he's trying to tell us, because now we're talking about suicide and Ophelia's final actions towards herself. The one line where it says, but is this law? There's multiple situations for people's lives, because if you take a look at Ophelia and how Hamlet's madness drove her insane, it may have made sense for her to kill herself. But does that exempt her from being in the unholy burial? We don't know. But William Shakespeare is trying to show us what constitutes you being able to go to heaven or go to hell. That's why this scene is very important. It adds towards that death theme by giving us the split and like what justifies a holy and unholy death. And of course it closes out Ophelia's character development in the fact that now we see her dead and that she is buried in a holy burial even though she killed herself, which is against the holy burial. But now we know that it closes out Ophelia's character development in the fact that she turned mad, killed herself, and now we're starting to see whether her death is justified as holy or justified as unholy. So this part is very important. Hamlet just put down a skull and he's talking to Horatio. To what base uses we may return, Horatio? Why not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole? 'Twere to consider too curiously to consider so. No faith, not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough and likelihood to lead it. As thus, Alexander died. Alexander was buried. Alexander returneth to dust. The dust is earth, of earth we make loam, and why of that loam whereto he was converted may they not stop a beer barrel? Imperious Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that earth which kept the world in awe, should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw. Now these lines are important because it goes more in depth about Hamlet's character and more into the death theme. At this point, Hamlet is starting to realize that no matter who you are, no matter how great you are, no matter who you were or what you did, you will still die and get buried and turn to dust. He talks about Alexander the Great dying, and even though what he did was insane, he still died. Or Julius Caesar, for what he did, he still ended up dying and having the same fate as Alexander, or even a normal person. So at this point, we're starting to develop that theme in death that everyone and everything will eventually die and turn to dust and be blown in the wind, no matter who you are. That's what Hamlet is starting to find out. Now Hamlet realizes that everyone will die no matter what. So now instead of being timid and like not executing on his plans, like for example when he didn't kill the king in the scene where he was praying, now he has no reason not to, because at this point he's starting to accept the fact that everyone will die and that his time is coming soon. Now he's starting to turn into a character who is more knowledgeable in death and that it will happen to everyone. So why not do what you want to do in your life before you die and accept that everyone will die and you will be next, no matter who you are. So that's the importance of this scene. It develops death in the fact that everyone will eventually die, and we see Hamlet learning this. So that develops Hamlet's character in a way that he's starting to become smarter about death and realize more about it. Now he realizes that everyone will die eventually. You may not know when that will come, but when it does, you have to be ready for it. Continuing on, we're at the part where Hamlet meets up with the king and the queen and Laertes at Ophelia's grave. They have just found each other and now they're starting to confront each other. What is he whose grief bears such an emphasis? Whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wand, ring stars, and makes them stand like wonder wounded hearers? This is I, Hamlet the Dane. Laertes coming out the grave. The devil take thy soul. Thou prayest not well. I prithee take thy fingers from my throat, for thou I am not splenitive and rash. Have I in me something dangerous? Just let thy wisdom fear hold off thy hand. Pluck them asunder. Hamlet, Hamlet, gentlemen, good my lord, be quiet. Hamlet and Laertes are separated. Why, I will fight with him upon this theme until my eyelids will no longer wag. Oh my son, what theme? I love Ophelia. 40,000 brothers cannot with all their quantity of love make up my son. What wilt thou do for her? Oh, he is mad, Laertes. For love of God, forbear him. Swounds, show me what thou do. Woot weep, woot fight, woot fast, woot tear thyself, woot drink up Isel, eat a crocodile. I do't. Dost thou come here to whine, to outface me with leaping in her grave? Be buried quick with her, and so will I. And if thou prate of mountains, let them throw millions of acres on us, till our ground cinching his pate against the burning zone, make also like a wart. Now this part is very specific because once again we start seeing more themes being developed here. For example, revenge. We see that Laertes would really just kill Hamlet whenever he could. As soon as he sees Hamlet, he starts choking him and trying to kill him. We see his direct approach at revenge that we don't really see from Hamlet at all. So it's like comparing the two of them. But we also see that development in Hamlet because now instead of running away and hiding and not confront people at this point, now we see him just straight up run into the group of people and actually confront them and even confront Laertes, who he knows is after him. But at this point, we're starting to see big developments. And for Laertes, he's still a static character at this point who really is just out there for revenge, because we see him go after Hamlet as soon as he sees him. He's still a static character that really just wants revenge. And in this scene, we can kind of see a little bit of reconciliation here as Hamlet tries to make it clear that he isn't really responsible for his death, and neither is Laertes. And he starts talking about how he would do anything for Ophelia that he really loved her, and he didn't mean for her to die and stuff like that. So he's trying to tell it to Laertes, whether that's for reconciliation or not. We can still see that theme here of him trying to make things a little bit better. And we still see madness here as the queen points out that whatever Hamlet is saying is through madness. We still see that they believe that Hamlet is under madness even though he isn't. And we start to see that madness being developed once again here as Hamlet starts actually saying stuff that could actually be the truth, but in the end they all still believe that he is under madness no matter what he really does at this point. And this scene is very important because we start to see the development of Laertes and Hamlet and Hamlet's character development, in that now he is done hiding and he actually confronts people, Laertes being static, and we start to see reconciliation, more stuff about madness, and even revenge at this point. We're starting to see those themes get developed more and more as this confrontation played out. And yeah, that's basically it for this scene. At the end of the day, we saw more development in death with Ophelia and her unholy or holy death justification, and then the death soliloquy from Hamlet. We start learning even more about death and how Hamlet is starting to get smarter and realizing that he may just have to come to accept it. And finally, the third part where Laertes and Hamlet confront each other at Ophelia's grave. We start to see the madness theme get developed. We start to see revenge and how it can be taken directly. And then of course the theme of madness, where no matter what you try to do, if people see you as mad, then they will believe that you're mad. And that leaves off Act 5 Scene 1. Now we move on to Act 5 Scene 2. Moving on to Act 5 Scene 2, here's a little summary for you. Basically, Horatio and Hamlet are talking in a hallway when a young Osric pulls up and starts telling them about how the king wants Hamlet to fight Laertes and starts placing bets that Laertes will win. Hamlet says what happens if he denies it, and if he does deny that, then he will be on trial for Polonius' death. So he accepts this, then Laertes and Hamlet fight, and then we get to the big climax of the play where everyone starts dying. Gertrude dies from the poison cup, Hamlet dies from the poison tip, same with Laertes, the king as well, he dies as well. Lord Fortinbras takes over Denmark and the castle. Once he takes over the castle, they drag out their bodies, and then there's a burial for them, and then a new kingdom is started in Denmark. That's basically what happens in this, but there are some important parts that we need to talk about, so let's get right to that. Starting from line 63, at this point, Horatio and Hamlet are talking about the death of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So, Guildenstern and Rosencrantz go to, why man, they did make love to this employment. They are not near my conscience. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow. 'Tis dangerous when the baser nature comes between the past and fell incensed points of mighty opposites. Why, what a king is this? Does it not think thee stand me now upon? He hath killed my king and whored my mother, popped in between the elections and my hopes, thrown out his angle for my proper life, and with such cousinage, is't not perfect conscience to quit him with this arm, and is't not to be damned to let this canker of our nature come in further evil? At this point, we learned that Guildenstern and Rosenstern are dead, and at this point, it shows us more about Hamlet's character and how much that he really wants this revenge. He knew personally Guildenstern and Rosenstern, and at this point, he doesn't even care that they died because they helped the king that killed his dad and then whored his mother and ruined his hopes and dreams for the future. That just shows how much Hamlet as a character wants this revenge and how much it really just is the main drive in his life, and that even those two's death didn't even faze him because he believes that they deserved it for helping a devil that is the king. We can also talk about the theme of death here again, as Shakespeare brings up that some people deserve to die and some people don't deserve to die. We could see that Ophelia didn't deserve to die because of Hamlet's madness and everything that he caused. Maybe she didn't deserve to die, but at this point you could start talking about death again as a concept and how some people deserve to die and some people don't deserve to die. This part is important for Hamlet's character, as in we just see how he believes that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern deserved to die even though they were kind of his friends and that he knew them. It's also important because it goes into the death theme again, in that some people may deserve to die and others may not have deserved to die, but it doesn't matter. In the end, they still die, and whether they deserved it or not is something that Shakespeare starts to build up in this scene. At this point, Hamlet and Horatio are talking about the king's request for him to come and duel Laertes. So now they're talking about how this seems kind of fishy. You'll lose, my lord. I do not think so. Since he went into France, I've been in continual practice. I shall win at the odds. But thou wouldst not think how ill all's here about my heart, but it is no matter. Nay, good my lord, it is but foolery, but it is such a kind of game-giving as would perhaps trouble a woman. If your mind dislike anything, obey it. I will forestall the repair hither and say you are not fit, not a whit. We defy augury. There is a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. Readiness is all, since no man of aught he leaves knows what is't to leave betimes let be. So once again, this part kind of relates more to the death theme as well as Hamlet's character development. If we think about death right now, Hamlet starts to realize that death will come to everyone. So now he does know that something fishy is going on and there might be a plot, but he doesn't care at this point. He believes he could probably win, but even if he doesn't win and he maybe ends up dying or something bad happens, he's willing to accept his death, whereas before he wasn't. So now we see Hamlet's character development in that he's not afraid to die and he's ready to accept it. Because now that he knows that death will come to everyone like we learned before, he's starting to just realize that if his time is now, it's fate. So at this point, he just realizes death will come and that he's ready to accept it no matter when it is or when it will come. And if it comes on this day from this duel, so be it. That's Hamlet's character development. Whereas before, he used to be all analytical and he just didn't want to die. At this point, he's just ready to accept death because now he knows no matter who you are, if you're Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, you'll still die just as a peasant would back in the day. So now he's ready to accept it and he's going to accept the fight because even if he does die, he knows that it comes to everyone and now he's ready to accept it. It develops the theme of death because now we're just starting to see that death may not be as bad as people think it is because now it comes to everyone. So death may not be as scary as we all think. So the importance of this scene is that it develops Hamlet's character and that he's now able to accept dying, and whether it be now or later, he's ready to accept it. And it relates more to the theme of death as it is starting to get developed into its final form where death will come to everyone no matter who you are, how special you are, it will come. And maybe death isn't as scary as we all know it. That's what Shakespeare's trying to tell us in this scene. In this final session, what happens is that Laertes and Hamlet start dueling and the poison drink is in play, same with the envenomed sword. And at this point, the queen has drank the poison and she's about to die. And then we're about to see what happens at the end of the play and the climax of the play unfold into a tragedy. Look to the queen there, ho. They bleed on both sides. How is it, my lord? How is it, Laertes? Why is it woodcocks mine own springe? Osric, he falls. Unjustly killed mine own treachery. How does the queen? She swoons to see them bleed. No, no, the drink, the drink. Oh, my dear Hamlet, the drink, the drink. I am poison. Oh, villainy, ho. Let the door be locked. Treachery, seek it out. It is here, Hamlet. Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. Indeed, there is not half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Lo, here I I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned, I can no more. The king's to blame. The poison venom too, then venom to thy work. Treason, treason. Oh yeah, you defend me, friends, I am but hurt. Here, thou incestuous, murderous, damned Dane, drink off this potion. Is thy union here, forcing him to drink the poison? Follow my mother, king dies. He is justly served. It is a poison tempered by himself. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. Laertes dies. Heaven make thee free of it. I follow thee. I am dead, Horatio. Wretched queen, adieu. And you look that pale and tremble at this chance. That are but mutes or audience to this act. Had I but time as this fell surgeon, death is strict in his arrest. Oh, I could tell you, let it be. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. Report me and my cause. A right to the unsatisfied. Never believe it. So this scene in particular is very important because it basically marks the end result of madness. Everyone that's important died here. Hamlet dies, Laertes dies, the king dies, Gertrude dies. All of the ones who were involved in revenge ended up dying. This is the end result of revenge. As a theme, we know that this is how revenge ends. By him telling us this, we see that revenge will end up in a tragedy or something bad and terrible happening in the end. We even see that all the attempts at treachery and trying to get revenge ended up backfiring and killing them. For example, the king's poison killing Gertrude and then ending up killing himself. The end result of revenge as a concept ended in a tragedy, and that's what Shakespeare's trying to tell us through his story of Hamlet. Revenge will end up pulling you to places that are terrible, and the end result was multiple deaths by their own hands at any point. So now we know that revenge ends up like this. It ends up in a tragedy. This also just ends the development of all the characters, because at this point they are all dead and they are all reconciled back into heaven or hell, depending on who it is. At this point, it just signals the end for all of our characters and their development, and that is the end for them in the story. And revenge as a concept is fully fleshed out to the end, showing us the end result of revenge. No matter how it was taken, revenge brought all the characters to the same place, to their own death. So this scene is very important as it's the climax for all of our characters and fleshes out death and revenge as a concept. That is the educational commentary on the most important parts of Hamlet's Act 5 Scene 1 and Act 5 Scene 2. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one if I ever do this again. I hope you enjoyed this commentary and maybe you learned something along the way. I will see you all in the next one.